Aaron, help me understand one thing. All that you're saying is wonderful. Mm-hmm. Help me understand your thoughts about what this community wants in a superintendent.
Absolutely.
What are the ideals of Charlotte-Mecklenburg? Help me understand. What is that?
Yeah, I mean,
what are they?
With the ideals of Charlotte-Mecklenburg, I think those two pieces are. That last statement of really what are the ideals that we're looking for represented in a new school board candidate, mm-hmm. right? And our new superintendent. We're looking for someone, because if you look at the history of Charlotte, we've, as challenges arise, whether it's the busing and integration in the 70s, whether it is the challenges that we're facing right now, I think Charlotte as a city has a history of coming together to solve incredibly difficult problems with folks and stakeholders from throughout the community, where folks kind of tend to step into problems as opposed to shy away from problems. And I think there's that history that we want to have a superintendent that's going to reflect this idea of taking on the challenges that we have head on, and who's going to say, hey, look, we have an academic achievement gap that we have to close. We have different educations for kids based on their zip code, based on the color of their skin, based on how much money their parents make. And who are going to take those issues head on and say, hey, look, we know we can do better, and we're going to do better. I think and we're going to do whatever it takes to do better. And I think that's the kind of mindset, that's the person that folks in Charlotte who they're looking for. Someone who could take that stand, but at the same time be able to communicate that to everybody. Because we've seen, even in the past year, we've seen policies that potentially, long range might serve the community in one way or another, but if they're not communicated, if they're not worked on well with all constituents, you see a lot of these policies failing. And so I think that we need to find someone who not only has these ideals, but actually can communicate them and work with others to implement them.
One of the concerns that I have, Eric, you don't mind if I call you Eric?
Absolutely.
I can't assume that it's all right.
No, it's absolutely all right. Absolutely.
I called you that a few minutes ago. Aaron, one of the problems that I'm having is there is a population in Charlotte that would say, do you really feel that that's the way we feel because we weren't brought to the table, our schools were closed, our children are not being educated, and the list of negatives is yay long. Mm-hmm. So how do you communicate that positive community, this is what the community wants, when part of the community is being left behind?
I think that, like, I've spent the last decade working in our most underserved communities, in our most challenged schools, and with the most at-risk students. And day in and day out, as a teacher, as an administrator, and even as a board member, I've listened to parents and seen their absolute desire to see their children get a better education than they are currently receiving, or a better education than they received. And I see parents from across the community who are willing to do whatever it takes, whether it is working a second job, whether it's traveling across the town in order to provide transportation for their kids to another school. Parents are rolling up their sleeves doing whatever it takes in order to make certain that their kids have a better shot in life. And as I see that, I can't help but believe that at the end of the day, they absolutely want what's best for their kids. And as a community, we want what's best for all kids. And I really believe that deep down, as a city, we have an idea of ourselves that is very much saying that we believe all kids can learn. And that we do want to actually accomplish that. We have a history of being pointed to as leaders in the educational community. People point to Charlotte and say, you look at the integration movement in the 70s and 80s, and folks looked at us as a model for public school education, right? Because we were taking on these challenges head on, and we were doing more than other communities were. And I think that right now we have a similar situation where we're facing incredible challenges now with the resegregation of schools. But at the same time, we have an opportunity right now. Because what I see is when I see every community standing up at school board meetings, voicing their opinions, not feeling heard, this is democracy in action. When people don't feel like they don't perceive that their ideas are being listened to, that their voices are falling on deaf ears, people speak louder. And that's what we're seeing happen in Charlotte right now. And what it really is a wake-up call to everyone in the community to say, hey, look, we are making decisions and leaving people behind. We are not listening to everybody in the community, and we have to open our ears and listen.
Erin, you were saying that you had worked in a number of communities. Are you saying in Charlotte, what are some of the areas or communities in Charlotte that you've worked in?
Sure. So I supported teachers in schools like West Charlotte, West Meck, Wilson Middle School, Garinger, J.T. Williams. That's where I originally met Brother Kojo, was when he was a parent advocate at J.T. Williams, you know. Down south, and I mean, if you go to Spar, or back when Marie G. Davis was still Marie G. Davis, Devonshire Elementary School, Walter G. Byers, Bruns Avenue, across the district, Albemarle Road, across the district, really getting a chance to be in schools, walking the halls, working shoulder to shoulder with teachers in order to, you know, help folks raise the bar for all students. Getting a chance to sit down with principals, human resources folks, folks across CMS officials, to really ensure that we were doing right by all kids.
That was in your position.
I was a program director with Teach for America. So my job was to go in and support, you know, first and second year teachers all throughout the district. Absolutely.
Have you worked for CMS at all?
I haven't been employed by CMS now.
But you worked in CMS schools.
Worked in CMS schools, absolutely. And so I worked, you know, absolutely. You named the principals, and I got a chance to sit down with them, and we would talk through professional development for their teachers, needs of their staff. Absolutely.
So it got you into schools.
Sure.
Okay. Just one other question, assuming we got to move on. But and I think this can be yes or no. Do you support? Would you support a superintendent that did not have educational background experience?
I don't think so. I mean, I've heard of other. No, I mean, I don't see that happening. You know, I think other districts have gone with someone who's gone with like a full business approach. There was even a general that was put in place with the Washington D.C. schools, and he resigned pretty quickly. So I think that like having someone who understands the educational choices and instructional choices that are being made as a district, I think is going to be important. But I think they also have to have that secondary piece of really understanding how to run a large organization as well.